Okay, so today we're going to go over cinematography and mise-en-scene, the visuals and camera work in film. The difference between the two is pretty simple. Mise-en-scene is what's on the stage, what is being filmed. It's those visual elements which are possible both in a film and on a stage, so it's something that could be done in a stage play. It's your frame composition, your actors, the objects, the colors, the lines, things of that nature. Cinematography, on the other hand, is how it is being filmed. It's what the camera is doing, not necessarily what is being filmed, but how the camera is moving, the distance from the actors, the angles, the focus, things of that nature. Both are analyzed as methods for conveying meaning. We're going to start with mise-en-scene. Here are some different elements of mise-en-scene, different things you take into consideration when you're analyzing a film from this perspective. So you have settings and sets, props, costumes and makeup, and lighting. Underneath each of those, you can see some different considerations for that particular area of study. For example, when you're looking at settings and sets, one thing you can analyze is realism versus stylization. How true to life does the film look? Is it hyper stylized, such as a movie like 300, which was filmed and staged in order to look like a graphic novel? Or is it a more realistic film where what you see on the screen looks just like reality? If you're looking at lighting, you've got some various kinds of lighting that filmmakers use. There's on versus off-screen lighting, high key versus low key. Are they using light to highlight or emphasize anything on the stage? And then there's backlighting, which is sort of that silhouette effect. Other elements of mise-en-scene include acting and blocking. For acting, you're concerned with the actors' voices. How are they speaking? Their facial expressions and body movement. Again, you can look at natural versus stylized. And blocking, that's how the actors move from one place to another. It's the arrangement of actors on the set in relation to each other and objects. That can have a lot of impact on interpretation of a film. Is the actor foregrounded? Are they always with a particular object? Things like that. In this, I want you to think for a minute. What do you see here? How are the actors positioned? What coloring is used? What is highlighted by the light? What objects are in the frame? Just take a look at that image and think about what you see. Okay, so in this frame, the first thing that I notice when I look at it is both position of actors and how they're situated in relationship to each other. You can sort of tell just by looking at this frame that these two actors, or these two characters in the film at this point in time, are not in agreement with each other, that there's some sort of problem between the two of them, or a problem outside of the two of them that they're dealing with right now. You can kind of tell this because they are positioned, their bodies are positioned looking away from each other. You can also see a tone or feel a tone from a frame like this, even if you disregard the fact that it's in black and white. It's still a dark frame. While we can see the actors relatively clearly, especially him because of the lighting and the use of his white shirt, we see the actors more than we see the objects in this particular frame. Now let's look at this one. Obviously, the actors are positioned opposite of the last frame. These two are looking at each other, but we can still get a feel for distance. For one thing, their bodies are further apart than is normal in a conversation. For another, they've used the set in order to separate the two actors. There's a strong vertical line in between them, almost setting them into two separate frames within the larger frame. Marion, this is from Psycho, if you guys didn't know, is framed by the doorway, and she is at the far side of the doorway from Norman, who is framed in the windows. Another interesting element of mise-en-scene within this particular frame is that you can see a light reflection of Norman in the window, which is kind of foretelling what occurs later, what audiences find out later about Norman having a dual personality. Okay, so other elements of mise-en-scene, the line composition and shapes that are used both within a frame, within a shot, within a scene, within a sequence, within the entire film. With line composition, you've got horizontal, vertical, diagonal, and curved lines. Horizontal lines tend to suggest solidarity and stable progress. Vertical lines suggest strength, authority, dignity, or imprisonment. Diagonal lines suggest action and movement, overcoming obstacles, tension in that particular moment during the film. And curved lines denote fluidity and sensuality. Compositions that suggest a circular movement evoke feelings of exaltation, euphoria, joy. They tend to be more positive and more fluid. Movement to the right of the screen, so if your lines are suggesting, or your composition of the frame itself is suggesting movement to the right, that tends to suggest forward progress. And if the frame is set up where you're seeing movement to the left, it tends to suggest retreat. Go ahead and check out this link after you're done viewing this PowerPoint for more detail on composition. It gives you a lot of great information that you will be expected to know. Okay, so here's a shot from one of the Batman movies, Dark Knight, I believe. First thing I want you to notice, look at the difference in color inside and out. While there is a dark bluish tint to the entire frame, outside of the building is lighter. There's much more activity, it's bright, whereas inside where Batman is standing is darker, more toned down, more isolated. We also have vertical lines here, which are denoting strength, which of course Batman is strong. But remember, the vertical lines also suggest imprisonment. And in this instance, I'm hoping, we all know this to be true. Batman is very imprisoned by his choices. He feels isolated from the rest of the city despite his urge to protect it. And hence we have these vertical lines separating him from the city, visually suggesting his emotional state. Color is another consideration of mise-en-scene. Colors carry significance, and the use of color in film is designed to subconsciously convey meaning to the viewer by evoking specific emotions. These are cultural rules that we all are raised in. We all know that red is evocative of passion, power, danger, violence, lust, and all of the colors carry these connotations with them. We associate green with nature, health, youth, generosity. Purple is nobility, spirituality, mystery. Black, of course, sophistication, death, anger. And the use of these colors is very intentional by filmmakers as a way to evoke specific emotions in the viewers. Okay, so from examples for this, if you look at the link for M. Night Shyamalan, it'll give you some insight into color in film. And then a lot of people in Schindler's List, you got this black and white film, and then we have this one girl in a red coat, really designed to stand out. And red, of course, suggestive of blood and death, and we all know what horrifying thing happens to that poor little girl. There are, of course, problems of interpretation. You always have to interpret the elements of mise-en-scene in the context of the entire film. You have to look at it in the context of the action taking place in that setting and in relation to the other settings. For example, a medium close-up of red-stained sheets covered bed can have different meanings in erotica, horror, drama, and thrillers. And we do subconsciously or consciously, as the case may be, make judgments about the film, about what happened in that scene, about what we're supposed to be feeling, based on the relationship between, say, the use of color and what sort of film we're watching. Then we also have the elements of cinematography to move on to how the camera is affecting the film rather than just the staging of the film. The elements of cinematography that we're going to focus on are going to be height, distance, angle, movement, and focus. So height of the camera is the distance from the ground. The distance we're talking about for the second element is the distance the camera is from what is being filmed, whether it's a physical distance of the camera or the use of zooming in and out. The angle is the angle of the frame. Is the camera pointing up at the action, straight at the action, down at the action, and so on. Movement, this is how the camera moves. Is it swinging back and forth and curving around on the action? Is it a stationary camera? Things of that nature. Then we have focus. What in the frame is in focus and what is out of focus? Focus is a way filmmakers highlight specific portions of your frame. So you should have already read the handout on this, but just to go over it again, these are the building blocks of film. Images are film. Films can lack sound, color, plot, and even actors, but without any images, even a white screen, it's just not a film. How we see these images is split up into the following categories. We have a frame, shot, scene, sequence, film. So your frame is an individual image like a photograph. You got a frame of a film, which is just a still shot look at it. Then you have the term shot. We tend to use the term shot sort of interchangeably for frame, so make sure you understand the differences between these two terms. A shot is a single constant take or a period of uninterrupted time during which the camera cannot suddenly change positions through a cut and it cannot be turned off and back on. So a shot can be a stationary camera just looking at the scene from a particular point of view. But if the camera moves without turning off, if we see the movement of the camera from point A to point B, it's still a shot. A frame, on the other hand, remember, is a still image. So a shot is a collection of frames put together. A scene is a collection of shots. It gives the impression of continuous action taking place during continuous time and in continuous space. It's typically a complete and unified narrative event. It's sort of a short little story within the larger. And the end of a scene is often indicated by a change in time, action, or location. Finally, we have a sequence. That's a group of related scenes which comprise a mini narrative of the film. All of these can be, or a sequence can be separated out. You can have scenes at different points in a film that are interrupted by other scenes that actually combine to form a sequence. So a sequence does not have to be chronological as you're watching the film. Here are some types of shots, some terminology that we need to know in order to do our next assignment. Just read these over. They make sense, I think. Angles. You got a high angle shot and a low angle shot. In a high angle shot, the camera shoots from above the action taking place, looking down on it. It tends to suggest condescension, judgment, inferiority. You can think of it as the term looking down. When we look down on someone or something, we are placing ourselves in a superior position to whatever it is we're looking at. So it is condescension or judgment, or we think of what's happening as an inferiority. Then you have low angle shots. That opposite. You're looking up at someone or something, which suggests power and superiority. Camera movement. Shots can be taken from a fixed position or the camera can be moving while filming. And here are some different ways a camera can move during film. You can pan, where the camera doesn't move but is turned from side to side horizontally. You can tilt. Again, the camera is stationary, but it looks up and down. There's a tracking shot where the camera moves horizontally, typically on tracks. A dolly shot, the camera moves horizontally, typically on wheels. A crane shot, where the camera can move vertically or horizontally off the ground. A following shot, where the camera follows a particular character. You can zoom in or out with a camera. You close in on something, move back from something. And then there's the handheld camera movement, where it creates an unsteady frame. We went through a whole use of this, like a common use of this for a while, where they wanted the films to seem very realistic, like someone was actually filming them. Then we have focus. When we're looking at focus, we're concerned with what specific object or person is highlighted by the shot. what object or person is clear and in focus and what objects are not in focus. You have deep focus, where all the objects are clear. And then you have shallow focus, where only objects at a certain distance from the camera are clear, and anything closer or further away appears a little bit blurry. And then there's rack focus. This is where focus shifts during a single shot. Rack focus can be everything in the background is clear and the foreground is blurry, and then it reverses that, or it can go from deep focus to a shallow focus. Okay, here's a frame from Citizen Kane. Again, I want you to look at it, think about what it looks like, what artistic elements the filmmakers have chosen in order to suggest something about this particular frame. So you can ask yourself, where is the eye drawn? What do you look at first? What's highlighted? And how does this happen? Why are we looking at the character's back? That's a very intentional choice, because rarely are we looking at a character from behind. Who has the power in this relationship, and how do you know that? At what distance from the ground is the camera? What sort of angle is it? Is it a high angle, low angle? Are we looking at them straight on? What is the effect of backlighting in this frame? Why do we have that silhouette effect? What are viewers supposed to interpret from that choice? And so on and so forth. So you do have some homework to do by next class. Look at your schedule for the actual due dates and a little bit more description. What you're going to do is choose a scene from Pan's Labyrinth, watch the scene, taking notes regarding the camera distance, angle, and height for each shot, the camera movements and cuts from one shot to the next, frame composition, line, color, placement of objects, so on and so forth. You're looking at the cinematography and mise-en-scene of a particular scene. Make sure you know the difference between a shot and a scene for this assignment. You're going to try to write a complete description of the scene using proper film terminology. And you're going then, after you're done with that, you're going to assign meaning or the reason to the choices for camera position, cinematography choices, and mise-en-scene choices. What we have here is an example from Memento. I chose scene 16 where Sammy is injecting his wife. So we start with a close shot of Sammy's face. We move on to a full shot or establishing shot of the wife sitting at the end of the couch. A medium shot of Sammy getting off the chair. Close-up of the insulin tray. A medium shot, two-shot of Sammy and the wife sitting angled towards each other. Close-up of fingers picking up insulin jar. Close shot of Sammy's face. Close-up of the tapping needle. Close shot Sammy's face. Close-up of the injection. A medium shot, two-shot of Sammy and the wife sitting. Close shot of putting the needle back on the tray. A medium shot of Sammy kissing his wife's shoulder. He then stands up, moving across her like a wipe, leaving a medium shot of the wife. Then the close-up of the watch as she sets it back 15 minutes. And then that scene starts all over with a medium close-up of Sammy's face. So when I'm assigning meaning to the particular cinematographic and mise-en-scene choices the filmmakers have made, I'm doing so based on what I've learned about mise-en-scene and cinematography, and also in context to the film as a whole. So I'm going to still describing that particular scene. The camera remains at eyeline height with the characters, and it's stationary. It transitions from shot to shot predominantly with straight cuts. There's no fading in and out or wiping or anything like that. And then the framing is also consistently tight. That means that what's going on in each frame, or rather, it means that each frame tends to be filled with stuff. There's not a whole lot of white space where we're really far away from the actors. We're right up on them, and they are heavily blocked by objects. So in my interpretation, beginning with a close shot of Sammy's face allows the viewer to focus on the absent expression and relaxed features of Sammy. Cutting to the full shot of his wife sitting at the far end of the couch emphasizes the distance between the two, the isolation that she's feeling at this moment in time. It also establishes the setting. They are in their living room. The next truly significant shot is the close-up of the insulin tray, which features the insulin, cotton swabs, and needle. The harsh lighting combined with the black and white color scheme give the tray an ominous feel. The next 6 shots detail the steps of delivering the injection. Each shot is quick and sharp, suggesting efficiency and a very professional or medical feel. The shot after that is a medium 2 shot, However, it reveals the distressed look on the wife's face, continuing the ominous feel of the close-up of the insulin tray. 2 shots later, we see a close-up of the wife's watch as she sets it back 15 minutes. Then a close shot of Sammy's face mirrors the shot which opened the scene, and it starts all over again. The consistently tight framing, simple cuts, and use of close shots and close-ups give the scene a very intimate feel. The audience is right in the middle of the action. And here are just some shorthand terms, ways you can refer to these particular shots and camera movements within your own interpretation. So you don't have to type it all out. So you can look over this to see to see how we shorten up shots in the film world. And then some other terms to remember. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. Go back through this PowerPoint, look at the articles online that I've linked to here, look at the handouts that I've given you on Angel in order to get at all of the terms. So that is your homework. Again, look at your schedule for the due dates. Remember, you should be doing this from Pan's Labyrinth, not from Memento. And I will see you next week.